Hello Final Fantasy friends, Opus 26 is upon us, and this is a hyper-condensed set review. This won't be going card by card, but we will be covering relevant archetypes, so you know what to look for when building or preparing for matchups. Let's get the basics covered first. There's going to be 130 cards in this set. We have 21 cards in each of the 6 main colors, and then 2 light and 2 dark cards. There's 7 new LB cards, 1 in each element except dark, and there's no multi-element cards. There are going to be 40 main set full arts, 3 legacy full arts, as well as a signed card and a crystal token. Excluding the signed and crystal card, you can expect to pull 1.8 full arts in each booster box. Always 1, often 2. The box topper of this set is Vincent, the signed card is Bartz, and the pre-release topper is Aiko. In terms of series representation, we're looking at a high quantity of cards from Final Fantasy V, 7, 11, 14, and 16, moderate counts in 9, 12, 13, WAF, Pictologia, and FFTS, a new category. Otherwise, nothing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and most of the named Final Fantasies. This set release comes with interesting news. The total number of packs in each box is being cut in half moving forward, which is why your expected full arts per box is so low. We're expecting the price to drop almost just as much, but it'll be slightly more expensive. Also, major news, new bans. Effective on Opus 26's release, Cecil and Rosa will have been banned, Yuna will be limited to 1, and Dataluma from Opus 4 is unbanned. As someone who hates banning cards, I'm actually very glad to see Yuna has been hit. This is also the first time in FF history that a card has been unbanned. Despite the limit on Yuna, she still isn't dead just yet. Titus and Sylvester allow you to get a single copy of Yuna very consistently. LB Rifia allows you to recur Tama for protecting said Yuna. These tools can also enable her to appear as a supplemental strategy to other existing archetypes, like Mono Water or monsters, not unlike how Sophie is used today. Chaos Arc got Aiko if you want to high roll into a free Arc off the top of the deck, but I think most Chaos Arc lists are running Man in Black or even Lulu nowadays, so they kind of want to keep the summons in the break zone for their own effects. Rifia has some new tools to play with, but nothing that really redefines the deck. Lena is a contested name, but is a good removal and search tool, and can otherwise just be used for special fodder for backup Lena. Ferris searches out Lena and can free play a fire or water forward equal to the number of backups you control, meaning you can play 4-wall even if you can't get all 4 colors off the bat, or forward Lena or Rifia. Ajdaya might be an interesting tool to use in Rifia as well, closing out games to swing with Leo or LB Titus or even 4-wall himself to get the opponent's last few cards out of the way as you swing for lethal. 7-wall got Clive, who hits a card in the break zone and draws you a card, and also gains the special abilities of icons that are in the remove from game state. Jill dulls characters on entry and threatens to break dull bodies on your attack phase. Not sure how many icons you want in a 7-wall list though, need some playtesting. Current 7-wall lists are running somewhere between 2 Clive, 2 Ifrit, so maybe it's just a swap of the Clives and throw in the Jills, maybe 1 of Shiva for the S for Clive. Otherwise, Undead Princess is a nice crystal generator that triggers a discard for your opponent, which is helpful for playing Edge or other crystal synergies. Warriors got Naji, an insane consistency search tool. They did not need this. Alwyn helps search for your combo starters, or even get Tyvis targets. Ferris lets you get a free play like Zidane, Axstar, Mog 6, Ward, etc. very easily as early as turn 2. You're going to have to play some more backups early than normal, but it is possible if you build the deck for it. Kind of acting as an alternative to Tyvis honestly, because it's every attack phase. Lund and Sonon are off color, but synergize with Warriors in a new and interesting way if you're willing to experiment. Sonon specifically is generating a lot of really good value when paired with Yuffie. For Knights, we have Heretical Knight Garland, an LB card that is expensive, but a very uncontested name. It's easy to slot just one of these into the LB deck. We also got Sleipnir, who is a 2-cost Job Knight if you need more lightning in the list, but if you're looking for more 2-costs, I think Lilith probably fits the bill better. The fundamental game plan of monsters isn't changing, but they do have Blue Mage now to free play a monster and draw a card once per turn when a monster forward dies. This gives more value to Piranhas, Moth Slashers, Gao activations, or even Witch activations if you're throwing monster forwards at people. In terms of new monsters to play, they're all 2 costs, which synergizes well with Realm. I don't think any of these really make it into the new lists for monsters, but I've misjudged them before. They all seem to have ways of squeaking in early damage in annoying ways, but they die when they deal player damage, so it doesn't sync well with the game plan that we currently have for monsters of go super wide and free realm bounces and free Gao. Xiphos and Mandragora feel the most oppressive to me, but we'll see what happens. Mono Fire got some tame but important tools. Phoenix and Zac let you free play fire forwards of cost 3 or less, Zidane, and Elwyn is a good generic search tool. Amaranta is an expensive payoff for building backups, but LB1 kind of justifies the slot. You're probably just going to flip it for mods cost, but it's good to have in there. Fang can get backups and sack itself for a free Bahamut from the deck, which is pretty nice. Soldiers got a new Angeal, who is a pretty contested name since the backup tutors and pumps damage, but this one recurs 2 soldiers from the break zone, making him a net 3 CP. His action ability lets you pay 2 CP to play a 4 cost or less soldier from hand, which can generate a lot of value on its own. This lets you color fix Sephiroth into Glenn lists, or color fix Matt or Lucia if you need to play them without Glenn. I think the repeatability of this Angeal makes him slightly better than the backup depending on how you build the deck, but it also helps activate Genesis a lot more, which sounds miserable. Otherwise, we have Cribshay, a cheap monster with First Strike for Sephiroth if you need more of that in Ice. Waff got 5 new cards, but to be honest, I'm not super familiar with the archetype, just small packages of Waff usually containing snow. So other than Sid Waff being a Ying to Lena's Yang, I'm not really sure what value there is to add here other than the obvious recursion from Rifia. In Cat 12 we have Larsa, Penelo, Vaughn, and Ash. A lot of these cards are just really cheap or free, and Wind, which allows you to do a lot more pings with Balthier or even Bismarck. Seems like a few good return to hand targets here with the repeated value of Bismarck, but that's been slow in the past, so I don't know if it makes the cut now. There could be enough value here to bring Cat 12 or Sky Pirates back to the meta, but I do think they need a bigger payoff or win con other than just more value generation. I'm a huge Cat 12 simp though, so happy to be proven wrong. Category 13 is getting a facelift. It's still explosive, but the new Lightning changes the game. She free plays a Cat 6 or less Cat 13 forward, attacking with her in a party, and it returns it to your hand at the end of the turn. This allows you to repeat entry effects. Saz and Snow benefit directly since they get bonus effects when played from a Cat 13 ability. Other obvious choices include Hope for repeated tutors, or the old Sid Reigns for repeated break. You're not going to trigger the attack autos through this though, since they enter in an attacking state, the card needs to initiate the attack itself to trigger the auto for attacking. Other than that, Sura is a cool direct damage option if you decide to go wide, and she can break forwards when she deals player damage. You can also pair her with Lightning if swinging into a dull-down board state. Fang searches and reduces the cost of Lassie, making the new Vanille free as a value generator, or acts as a backup search or a consistency tool for aggro. She can otherwise sack herself for basically a free Bahamut from the deck. With all of Lightning's free plays, Noelle might have some viability, lots of tools to play with here. I'm very excited for these to hit the mainstream again. Mono Wind got multiple great value generators with Cloud, Sisane, and Sonon. Maybe Aerith if you make a Cat 7 backup engine. Sonon specifically needs Yuffie to generate value. The 5 CP Yuffie comes to mind as an obvious choice, but there are others that can be potent. Sisane having a mode to hit monsters is welcomed, and Cloud is a big man that draws lots of cards and will likely be a way to wall out attacks or chip in early. Since he can also break 5 costs with his S ability, it doesn't require a tap, he's probably going into some Storm builds. Alexander is also a nice addition that allows you to freely break a 5 CP or higher character, so your Tyros and Shantotos are at risk against Winds if you rely on them for color fixing. Mono Ice, or Ice Lightning, got Sid Reigns, Kuja, and Sid Waff, which denies cards played not from hand, triggers discards on entry, or discards on EX bursts. Category 15 got some new stuff, but not very cohesive as usual. Noctis is a cheap but weird recursion tool. Maybe enabling Gladio or Prompto with this cheap body is enough to justify him, but I think the multi-element one's probably always better. Ladolus can get a Category 15 back to free play it, and Ignis has some value in a double whammy damage effect with the multi-element Noctis. Cat 7 got a new Tifa and support specifically to enable her. You can convert a card in hand into an 8k ping if you have Zangan and Cloud on the field. The new Zangan lets her use her tap the turn she enters, but he can also tap himself to 5k something for each martial artist on the field. Shiren recurs Cat 7 and discounts Tifa by 3. I think going with some form of Cloud Zangan backup is going to have value for Tifa, but this Zangan can just 10k something with him and Tifa on the board. Maybe using Neo to give another character job martial artist is worth it, since she's a Cat 7 backup and is an Avalanche operative, searchable off of Elf. Otherwise we have Vincent, who is just a strong card to hate against 3 costs if you're fighting against warriors or 7 wool enough. Bugenhagen can also help free play Red 13 over and over. Warp got some interesting tools. Fina searches a warp card and allows warp costs to be paid with anything, and can expedite warp entries. Cloud has a warp, but it's more suited to Mono Wind. Physalis is free playing a warp card of cost 5 or less from your hand when her warp counter is removed. You've got targets like Titus, Noelle, Charlotta, the Emperor, and Prish. The Icons and Dominants got some new cards and some support for priming in the form of other Cat 16 characters. Clive is a really strong alternate to the original, drawing a card and hitting a card from the break zone. He also inherits the S abilities of icons removed from the game, however he does have an auto ability on the entry, so your opponent has an opportunity to kill Clive before he can prime into Ifrit. Also, his base cost and priming costs are odd numbers, making them harder to cast on curve. The new Ifrit doesn't have an S ability, but can be good for S fodder with the other Ifrit. Otherwise, dealing direct damage when blocked or when chosen by abilities makes him hard to answer. Jill will dull characters equal to the number of icons in your break zone and removed from game. She can also break a forward by paying 1 ice at the start of each attack phase, which can really pose a problem and halt attackers. The new Shiva freezes forwards and backups, but more importantly has an S ability for the new Clive, which lets you force discards. Joshua deals 2k for every icon on the break zone and remove from game. This means you'll need to see and discard 4 icons to do an 8k ping. He does a lot less than Jill for the same cost, but his cheaper priming cost lets you draw 2 fire or Cat 16 cards from the top 4 of the deck, and has an S ability that lets you revive a Cat 16 forward from the field for 4 CP, which lets you play the more expensive icons out for cheaper. For additional support, Elwyn lets you search for a fire forward, which allows you to either set up the board or get S fodder for Clive. Gav is a generic Cat 16 search tool. Vivian allows the priming cost to be paid with anything and draws you a card whenever you prime. Annabelle lets you dull and freeze a character whenever you prime. Byron recurs specifically Clive or Joshua, and he can tap and break himself to get the 3-cost versions of them out onto the field from hand. The 12 is a similar package to Soiree from back in Opus 16. There's 2 characters in each element. 7 of them only do their effect when there are enough of the 12 bodies out. Other than shoving all 12 of these guys into a list with Gilgamesh FFVII, I think these guys can thrive on a smaller sub-package in some interesting ways. Full disclosure, I have no idea how to pronounce half of these people's names. I haven't heard any of them spoken by NPCs. Early on you'll want to get Limleen to color fix, Burgot and Nemia for draws, Menfina for tutors, and Nafika for recurring on entry and on death. Once you have 3 or more of these out, the following cards can get their autos online when you have 4 or more bodies within the archetype. Nemia's Tap can help you draw additional cards. Thaliak's Entry for removal and draw. Althic's Entry for removal. Naldthal's Entry for free plays from break zone equal to bodies. Most of them are 3 costs or 4 costs. Azima to gain haste, first strike, and 8k ping on swing. Ashan gains 1k power for every other body and becomes sticky at 10k power. Ralgar costs 1 less per body on board, so having 4 out makes him a 4 cost 9k haste that breaks a forward. If you dedicate enough bodies to the board, Halon needs 6 bodies on the board for her auto to get online to trigger 2 dulls and freezes and a discard on entry and attack. It's worth noting that Lightning doesn't have a backup in this range, which makes me feel like these guys are splashed in more than a primary color for the deck. If you're playing with a bunch of different colored backups, then some easy choices to throw in like Forwool and Zidane. I think Water and Earth are the strongest elements here, and Fire and Lightning are close behind. I specifically like Nafika for 2 big reasons. Having her recursion on entry and on death makes her a net 0 CP, 8k over time, while color fixing your hand, or getting you cards that progress the board state. Wind has the color fixer, which is obviously important, but the other dude is just a beat stick, so I'm kind of underwhelmed with that. If you run more than 2 colors, you probably want to run this too, but Wind is offering the least otherwise. Ice just needs a lot of commitment for the payoff, since Halone needs 6 bodies to do literally anything, and Menfina's tutor can only be paid with CP from cards in the archetype. Overall, I'm very excited to see where these will land, but I don't think that this package is strong enough on its own to be a contender at Majors. Maybe they're similar in power to Warriors of the Crystal. But there's a lot to work with in these colors, so I'm excited to see where everyone takes it nonetheless. Another new potential build-around card came around as Rala. It negates the first instance of player damage by dulling itself, and becoming dull breaks an opponent's forward. You can also pay 2 to activate it at any time. How do we build around this? Take damage on our own turn, dull it via an effect, or save CP by getting an alternate way to activate it. For self-damage, there are tools like Cecil's alternate cost, Ice Cecil's entry and S ability, Bosch, Cindy, Bahamut. Oh, hi Fang. For dulling Rala, we can use many different Shiva summons. We can use Leo, Surges, or Ignis. Other alternate ways to activate Rala could come from Yuffie's attack, Heian's attack, which also lets Rala attack twice, or Dario Horn to keep Rala up at the end of turn. I have no idea what's optimal, but there's a lot of potential, and I am definitely going to have a lot of fun building different iterations of Rala decks. For backup lines, first we have the crystal backups. These are simple 2CP backups that generate a crystal on entry, and they can sacrifice themselves for a mostly useless effect. It's really only relevant to make room for other backups. These are probably just reprinted to keep them in the rotation of L3 and L6 for Japan. Next we have the standard unit line. These are 2CP backups that do nothing on entry, but they all have an action ability to tap and discard a card for an effect. That effect is boosted when you discard a certain element. Normally when we see element pairs like this, they're going kind of round robin style, but this time they're paired into 3 groups, which is a welcome change. The only pairing that sticks out to me is Ice Lightning, since it's a color combo that is played regularly. I'm also looking at all these abilities as something that effectively costs 3 CP. It's repeatable though, so there's value in that. White Mage I think is the strongest standalone by far. Being able to remove cards from the break zone in response to them declaring a recursion target is a big resource swing. Mini Fighter is a mini Surges. We already pay 3 for Surges, so might as well pay 3 for this repeatable mini fighter. Chemist and Gladiator are telegraphed power adjusters to keep up as a threat to win an unexpected trade. Musician can end up dealing 7k pretty reliably to dull forwards and Ice Lightning, but Ununite is just another ping that doesn't hit hard enough. But maybe with Left TR Neon is potent enough. For the summon line this time around, they're all able to be cast for free if you deal 2 forwards of the summon's element. Phoenix can free play a 2 cost or less from the break zone, dull, be on the lookout for targets there. Alexander can break a 5 cost or more character, and the free effect assists in storm counts. Odin, Titan, Kujata are all removal tools. Leviathan is a return to hand effect, and there aren't really a whole lot of targets in the current meta that I'd want to return to hand, but dulling Leo and one other guy is a very easy enough task to make this free. The monster lineup is all 2 costs that become 7k forwards on your turn. They all have some combat-based ability and a mandatory sacrifice effect when they deal player damage. Keep in mind that if the monster dealing damage dies to an EX burst, they don't see them sacrifice themselves and won't trigger the second effect. Malboro has a power reduction on attack and on player damage. Xiphos does power reduction when blocked, trading up to a 10k, and breaks a 4 cost or less when dealing player damage. Mandragora breaks a forward it deals damage to, so it trades up into basically anything without first strike, and recurs a card, any card, when dealing player damage. Gorger can only be blocked by 2 costs or less, and activates backups and draws on player damage. Cripshay has first strike and makes the opponent discard 2 on player damage. Behemoth has haste and deals 8k damage to a forward when he deals player damage. And that is the end of the Opus 26 set review. I appreciate you making it this far. My initial goal was to make it super high level in under 10 to 15 minutes, but I didn't want to skimp on the 12 since they're a huge part of the set's release. If you would like to see this more condensed, or if you'd prefer this length, let me know. This is the first video I've ever really done, let alone a set review, so I'd appreciate any kind criticism that you'd be able to lend me. I do hope to make more videos for you all soon, so I will see you next time. Thanks.